Usually erring on the side of controversy, videos like these often have a sort of negative opinions articulated into them, usually by taking unsubstantial evidence and calling out developers. That is, of course, not warranted in this case, as I feel I've seen way too many of these type of videos. I mean, for real, if you type in the state of TF2 in 2020 in YouTube search bar, I guarantee you that one of the first results will be a negative fear-mongering for the future of the game. Now, to avoid getting mauled by a fanbase, I won't make any of these videos public, as everyone can have an opinion as they so wish. However, I want to debunk some of these thoughts and false information about the game. Now, remember, Team Fortress 2 is not perfect. No game is. But if you really want to take a critical eye at a game such as this, you must remember that the game itself is 13 years old. Valve has taken an interest in other projects such as VR, pushing innovative technology, and holding a giant marketplace for nearly all games under the sun for PC. All of these put together put a strenuous effort on updating a game that won't be pushing any new boundaries anytime soon. Whether or not the game is dead from using this knowledge is not up for debate. The game is not dead. The game won't be dead until you're physically unable to begin playing the game, or so the definition goes. Personally, I believe the complaints of TF2 being dead are far from justifiable. I'm not even close to the only one who believes this, of course, as many people also believe the same thing I am preaching here now. To further prove my point, allow me to ask, what defines a dead game? Is it lack of players? Well, no, TF2 has players, floats around tens of thousands of times. Is it the lack of support by the developers? Still, not quite. The Valve server is still up, are they not? Is it a lack of community engagement? I mean, for God's sake, look at the servers such as creators.tf. They add new maps almost bi-weekly at this point, as well as push out major content patches. Back in 2018, I was a co-host of the podcast called The Minty's Monty, headed by a fellow YouTuber, Minty Coffee. The first non-pilot episode featured Alexer, Minty, and myself discussed the community being given more control over the game. I argued the point that while giving the community control over the game would relieve a lot of people's worries, it would also bring up a bunch more. Outsourcing. Outsourcing is the word and phrase thrown around a lot, and honestly, I have a problem with this. Here's a clip from Minty's Monty of me discussing the game being outsourced to a third party, specifically around weapon balances.
Outsourcing the game? That could, I'm not saying it will be, but we've seen this with other games in the past, how if it gets outsourced, then, the community is much easier to sway than an actual development team. So, a bad change could just be, or a good change for that matter, could be instantly, reverted and stuff like that. And just over and over again. With Valve, they make a change, and most of the time they stick with it. And while they've done bad changes in the past, but they are sticking with that, and if they just kept on reverting it depending on whose side is louder, oh, I want the ambassadors changed, or and then okay, we'll revert it, and then they revert. Oh, the ambassador's too hard to use, and stuff like that. And then you got the weird middle guy who's like, oh, the ambassador's way too hard to use, and it encourages bad people. It's like, what? That's a real thing I've heard.
Alright, so before we move on to talking about different updates, anyone else, anything last to add?
At the end of the day, I believe without a shadow of the doubt that TF2 right now, at this very moment, as of 2020, is fine. Let's not get bogged down whether or not the developers care, or if the game is dead or dying. Let's instead look at the game as a whole. For more than a decade, this game has nurtured from a Cold War themed game to, as the tagline states, the most fun you can have online. Should we really argue this point? Nobody wants the game to outright die. However, being realistic, TF2 will not be around forever. We won't be around forever. Let's take our time to play the game that brought us together, not make it a game to drift us apart.